So it right, up the Chels, up the Minerals FC. Big up to every single one of you live and locked in. I hope everyone's doing well in life. First and foremost, I want you all to smash to pieces that like button. If you haven't smashed it, smash it right now. If you haven't subscribed to Minerals FC, make sure you do smash the subscribe button. We've got the notification bell, ding dong, so have it right so you know when we go live. And we've got our Minerals FC Ultras membership pinned at the top live chat and down below. And salute to all the Minerals FC Ultras and all the proper Chels. Respect to everyone in here. Please do get in the chat. Land your minerals as you always do. Tonight is a different stream to what we normally do on the Minerals FC. And I thought this is something necessary to do. I'm very thankful to know Steve. And we all know Steve, who's in the chat, our ultra in the chat, and obviously a proper Chelsea, a general, bruv, Chelsea heritage. And there's a kind of like, there's a lot of narratives that are thrown about Chelsea supporters back in the day, about the firm, and there's not really much out there. It's very limited to what you hear, what you see, and we've got the opportunity on the Minerals FC to have someone who has lived it, breathed it, gone through it, blood, sweat, tears, the lot, bled blue, still bleeds blue, and is offering to come on and give you the truth and an insight into how it really was at Chelsea. And I want everyone to show their appreciation to Steve G. And he will speak on everything he can and everything he can't. It is what it is, bruv. It's a need to know, and for ones that know, that's it. But it's going to be a fantastic show. And it's going to be something that's going to wake up, hopefully, the new generation of supporter to understand what it is to be Chelsea and how it was at Chelsea back in the day, old school ways. You know what I'm saying? So respect to everyone. Smash the like, hit the subscribe, and let's bring on our Stevie G. Big up to Stevie G, man. Respect to you, my geezer. How are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing great, Johnny. All the better for being on here and chatting to my fellow colleagues out there in the chat, and all of the people that have been texting me going, "Give it to Johnny." Well, I don't know what I want me to give to your son, but I'll give it a go. So
give it. He's going to land minerals. Don't worry about it. He's going to land minerals tonight.
Yeah.
Let's start off, Steve. Yeah. How did, because everyone's got a perception of Chelsea supporters back in the day. Everyone's seen it, you know what it is. But let's talk about, you've had 5 decades of being a Chelsea supporter.
Yep.
You've been through it, home, away, Europe, the lot. You know what it means to be Chelsea. But I want to ask you to sort of set the tone. How did you become a Chelsea supporter, and how did you end up from being a Chelsea supporter entering the glorified, what they call headhunters, the firm?
Yeah, everyone was given that label of headhunter if they dared to sort of speak up or show a little bit of passion and pride. It's how it was back then. But in a very brief synopsis, I grew up 3 roads away from the bridge. I lived in Ifield Road, which is just on the back of the Brompton Cemetery. And on a good day, with how the Matthew Harding stand was back then, which was just a terrace of concrete with a little box on the back, I could see into the ground with a telescope of all things. So whilst I was a kid, I was getting half the match. And every time they scored a goal, about 2 seconds later, you'd hear the noise come across. So that got me into it. I sort of loved all the atmosphere, and I saw the lads walking past with their scarves and rattles and all that, as it was back then in the 70s. So I thought, well, I want to be a part of that. So I think at the age of 8, I started sneaking into the bridge, ran the back of the railway lines, have a little shimmy up the pipe and into the back of the East Stand, as it were. And the majority of it was you'd sneak in, or where they used to have the dog track running around, and used to be able to park the disabled cars right up next to the pitch. You'd walk in as if you're going towards the cars, and then you'd slap off into the shed or whatever. And a lot of the elders then would take you under their wing and go, "Come here, son, we'll look after you. You know, we'll get you a burger and a pint." I'm like 8 years old, and they're offering to give me a pint. It's proper geezers back then. Salt of the earth. But people have got to realise what it was like back then. In the 70s, there was fuel crises. There was we was just joining the common market. There was so many other things going on, and money was tight. So you was finding a lot of the chaps were meeting in pubs, and they was making it an all-dayer when it came to football matches. And before long, that community got very tight. They started seeing rivalry erupt to the point where someone wanted to have a piece of you. They wanted to get in your face. And a few started standing up to it. And then word of mouth got around. And gradually that core got bigger and bigger and bigger. And they were what I would call the first wave of genuine headhunters. And they sort of sown the seeds and got the notoriety of what people see in the press, etc. Because all they had to go on at the time then was how bad it was when we played people like Leeds and things like that, because it was terrible. Anyone that's ever watched those Leeds games and the violence between the players, let alone the fans, was next level. So these guys sort of went all the way through it. My older brother was also a part of the original firm before he signed up to join the Navy. And, well, yeah. And then to sort of skip a bit of that, because I know not everyone is going to sort of appreciate so much the 70s content. And that was where I was just beginning. The 80s was like the baby boom edition.
Right.
That's where all the main clubs had a firm. I mean, back then the Premiership didn't exist, and we was at an all-standing stadium. At which point the terraces were just a few concrete bars with a few concrete things, but we could hold about 60,000. And at the big games, we often did. Our rivals back then are not the rivals we have today. Some are, some aren't. I mean, Leeds isn't really a rival anymore compared to what it used to be. But, you know, we can't forgive. There's things that you just can't brush under the table from back then. That does carry forward. Our main people was your Millwalls,
yeah,
your West Ham, your Spurs. Arsenal, to be fair, weren't really a threat back then. They didn't really have a firm. And obviously... So a lot of the teams you don't hear of so much at the moment now, like your Cardiffs and
Cardiff,
things.
yeah. I was going to say Cardiff, yeah.
They had a big firm. Even Birmingham, you know, the Soul Crew and all that, you know, there were so many. There was a lot of rivalry. There was a lot of banter. And without going into ridiculous detail, everyone had a front man who was a bit louder, a bit bigger, and a bit more vocal than everyone else. And people realised that outside of the fun of going to watch a football match that we hoped, there was people out there that were willing to go, right, okay, well, let's have a bit of a side bet. Let's have a bit of a set to. Let's see who's the real dons here. If you reckon you want to come and take a piece of the headhunters, then let's do it.
Yeah.
And you'd have meets arranged at various parks, venues, whatever. And the people that were in charge back then would organise a capped group of, say, 50. They'd go, right, bring 50 of your top boys, and your rival, you hope, would keep the faith and bring 50 of theirs. No weapons involved. It was just your hands. So you could go home to your missus with a black eye, or maybe a broken arm or something like that, but you went home. Not like how it is today when people just pull out a blade or a gun. It's just, it's different level. But yeah, it really boomed in the 80s, which everyone saw. lot of unemployment around at the time. Maggie Thatcher in charge. She had a real bee in her bonnet about football, and she made a task force to eradicate all of the hooligans and all that from the time. And of that time as well, there was a lot of racial issues about. But one thing I do want to say is you got to think in the time period when Chelsea sort of started getting to fame and started getting their notoriety. It wasn't long after World War II when things started kicking on. It wasn't long after sort of the British Rail and the airports and stuff like that wanted to recruit from the West Indies. So you had your Windrush generation come in, and primarily they settled in places like Ladbroke Grove, Notting Hill, Holston, Kensal Rise, Willesden, all those places of northwest London. If people don't know the geography of where Chelsea is situated, because Chelsea is bang in the middle, West London prime real estate. So you could easily get to that. So racism was around. I think a lot of it was ignorance rather than actual racial hatred. And it took a long time to change people's ways, let's say, because I had a lot of friends that were West Indians. I really loved the culture. When they came over, they welcomed me into open arms. And at the time, I was a skinhead. Now, as a skinhead, as you know, you was always seen as, oh, well, if you've got that haircut, you must be racist. And I had to win my battle with them to prove to them that's not how I am, as well as prove myself at football matches, showing that I had the no surrender attitude. So if there was aggro, even if I wasn't a part of the headhunters, I would sort of stand up with them and show I was willing to support them because they was on the side of Chelsea. And eventually people notice you, they see what you're doing, and they go, look, you know, thanks for helping us out on that one. Pop along to the boozer, let's have a chat, blah, blah, blah. And you meet up with all the faces. Obviously, there's enough press around that relate to Jason Mariner. The guy's a legend for what he did and for what he was a part of. He had no fear. He served time. Everything's out there in the public domain to research people like him. But Jason was just one person of many. Now, in the 80s, we went from quite a small firm, compact and trustworthy, to a massive firm. Now, the problem with a massive firm is controlling them all. You can't say, right, to 2,000 people, right, we'll see you at the park, sort of behind Fulham Broadway, or we'll meet you over the edge of West Brom. Someone's going to notice 2,000 of you. So what we had to do is set up little regions. For where I was, or where I used to be in Southwest 6, I moved out to the suburbs, and I was closer to your Ruislips, your Heathrow, your Harrow, your Watfords, if you like. And I set up my own little group out there. And what we was like the TSG of the day, but we was on the side of Chelsea. So at which point, if something was happening, we would be contacted, whether it be a phone behind the bar, because obviously a lot of it was pre-mobile phones back then as well, because everyone wanted to carry a brick around. You get a phone call behind the bar going like, this is going to happen in 30 minutes. Can you be ready? And it was like everyone's quickly on the train, because we used to meet at a pub called the Middlesex Arms in Ruislip, which is right next to South Ruislip train station. So we was on the train within a matter of minutes, and we was heading wherever we needed to go. We was there to support and back up all of what people class as the generals. We didn't really regard them as that back in the day, but we certainly knew who to respect, who to listen to, and go from there, really. I mean, there were so many things that we did which some would be ashamed of. Others would go like, you really showed your mettle. You got behind the players, the team, and your fellow supporters, and you backed them up, which is hopefully what I was doing. I was one of many, but I controlled quite a big group in my region. and we all got respect for what we did. And
how many are you talking, Steve? How many would you say you'd have, like, certain of you would have control of?
50.
All right.
But you think 50 like-minded people that were willing to walk over hot coals and show the no surrender mental attitude to whatever was in front of them. Whether we was facing 100 people or 200 people, we'd still only be 50. But that happened only on certain occasions. Primarily, we was always there to back up and strengthen numbers when it was a big set to. Primarily your Millwalls and stuff like that. And I love the fact that you've done the backdrop of the Football Factory today. Although it was a fictional movie, a lot of the content that was in it, which a lot of the people out there won't know, was actually based on truth. Nick Love and Guy Ritchie, of all people, are real big Chelsea supporters. And he wanted to get facts. So obviously not everyone's going to want to watch the very mundane nitty gritty of what it was really like back then. So they had to televise it and change things around to bring in the audience. I mean, Danny Dyer as the main man for Chelsea. Come on, we all know he's a hammer.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
You know, but it was good. At least he was a Londoner. It wasn't like an American, like they tried to do in Green Street, where they had the Hobbit playing a hard man. Come on.
Yeah. What would Danny have Dyer been? Who would he have been, like, in terms of, like, was he like the front man? What kind of role is he in terms of the film and reality? Would you say?
He was just like one of the characters, as it were. I don't think Danny was based on anyone in particular. What was based more on facts, if from the movie, was the leaders at the time. So the ones they called the Major, the General, and all that. They existed. Obviously, everyone knows about Jason Marin, which is great. There was a few others involved, but because their names have not really come out in the press, I can't really mention them because I don't want to get a knock on my door and go, oi. But no, we're all on good terms. I don't think any of us have fell out in the 50 years we've known each other. My crew often come round to my place. I'm in my man cave now. I've got my car on one side. I've got my pool table on the other side. I've got a bar and a great big dirty TV on the wall. And when they normally come round, there's a riot and all the neighbours go out. Because they know they're getting Chelsea 24/7 whilst my lot's in town. But yeah, no, we're great friends for life. Women may come and go, but your football team never changes. You never change your allegiance. Never. Our blood is blue. Cut us in half. But
that's it. Like they say, I might be married, but I've got my Mrs. Chelsea. I'm married to Chelsea, and no matter what, you know what I'm saying.
Well, I had to choose, mate. There was a point at which point it did affect my relationship, as it probably did with a lot of guys. You was choosing the missus wants to go out and do a bit of shopping, or she wants to do this and that. But you've just had a phone call and it's gone, there's going to be a set to down the road. I'm sorry, I've got my coat on and I'm down the road. She can have a Toby down to the nearest Asda and buy her own shopping.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that didn't go down too well. So even though I got some lovely children out of the relationship, she was on her bike back to Germany, which is where she came from.
Love that. Let's talk about let's talk about a general day, like a game day.
Yeah.
Let's take it doesn't have to be anything in particular, or you can think of a game day of how would it be? Like, how do you feel? Like, you get up in the morning, or you're thinking about it days before. It's all planned, everything's ready in the waiting. Like, just run through, try and tell us what was that? What was that morning, day, or that week leading up to a game? How it was?
It really depends on who you was facing, as you can imagine. If you was just facing a run-of-the-mill team which haven't got a firm or something like that, if you wanted to go to the game, you just went along as a supporter and you'd have a few jars, socialise with your pals, and if something was ready to kick off, you were always ready. But so many times it never did. And so what you just turned to was being loud and proud in the stadium. You would sing your heart out. You would like back the team to the hilt. You would make noise. You would create that atmosphere. When the players come out, they knew exactly where to look and knew to go, there's our boys up there. And that's what you did. If it was a game with a rival or a hated rival, dare I say, there would be a lot of planning, because we couldn't let that fly, because there's been many a times where teams have come to the bridge. They've had a firm and an agenda. They've wanted to maybe invade the shed, as it always was 100% Chelsea back then. Not like it is now. I mean, we share the shed with the away fans. That would never have been heard of back in the day. It's like they're sitting in our spaces. They're walking on us. And that was part of the kick hooliganism out of football, by disrespecting the fans' stronghold. The shed was always ours. They took that away from us. And now it's so weak and mediocre. But to name one game in particular, we was playing Spurs. I can't remember the year, but this was a good one. There'd been a lot of mouthing off. There'd been a lot of contact. There'd been a lot of flybys, let's say. We was getting Spurs supporters coming over into the Chelsea Manor. A few bricks through pub windows with messages tied to them. Keying up with a few cars. The odd car outside the pub turned on its roof, and it's spray painted on the underside, Chelsea will get you, and all that sort of shit. So, of course, they was building it up, but unfortunately, they didn't realise it's like poking a bear. They started doing that, and we thought, no, we're not having none of that. So, on the day, we would have intel on what boozers the particular firm and loudmouths and things like that were at. And the organisers, let's say, of the firm would say, right, they're all going to be in there at 1 o'clock. Match kicks off at 3. At 1 o'clock, I want us to go in there and tear them a new one. And you would sort of go there waiting for it. And they would have lookouts on the outside looking up and down the street just to protect them. And they also showed that one bit in the Football Factory film where they had a young lad sitting out on a wall outside a pub.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was actually someone's job to go up and ping the lookout and knock him out so that we could have a free run at the pub. And a couple of lads got some tear gas canisters. And this particular pub had 2 entrances, and so the doors were kicked open, tear gas canisters thrown into the pub. Doors were held shut with a chain to let the tear gas do its job. Then chains were whipped off, steamed in there, and there was probably about 70, 80 Spurs in there. But as you could imagine, all disorientated, eyes streaming, and probably none were left standing when we left. And I won't go into detail because he's just glorifying it, but they got what they deserved. That was what they got from poking the bear. It wasn't a cold, callous act of just doing it for the sake of doing it. There's got to be a reason behind everything. We were just not that sort of people. We weren't that cold to just go, right, we're going to go and cause trouble because we're bored. That's not how it was.
So are you basically saying, yeah, that you were provoked all the time because you were
a lot of the time,
renowned.
Yeah.
You were renowned for being, untouchable in a way, or in masses of you. You know what I'm saying? Of the Chels. Like,
yeah.
Like what I want to know is, like, how did you gain the reputation? Because Chelsea are am I right in saying were the originators of this kind of like
I'd say one of the originators, because there was other firms around, but they always existed, but it wasn't in the public eye. So not many people knew about it, or they would turn a blind eye. Back in the day, the police knew it was going on, and they thought, we don't want to get involved in that, because if they get involved in that, they'd end up coming out second best, because the police couldn't be everywhere at once. So yeah, it really was a case of we had to do things right. We had to be above board. We had to be accountable for what we did. If any of us got caught doing what we was doing, the idea was you take it like a man. You know, there's no crying and over spilled milk and stuff like that. If you got caught for doing something wrong and you was guilty of that, you just had to put your hands up. There was never any messing about. There was never any, how can I put it? Everything we felt that went on at the time was justified. There was a reason. We became notorious as the top dogs. So firms were actually being created in other teams to try and knock us off that pedestal. A bit like how it works in the Premiership, for instance. Everyone wants to be top dog, and as soon as they're top dog, everyone wants to beat them, and you play a cup final every single Saturday. That's how it was with the firms. Everyone started creating and building up their repertoire, even recruiting from local gyms, boxing clubs and stuff like that, trying to get people that were a bit handy and knew what they're doing. And there was some brilliant other firms out there. I'm not so cocky to think we were the best. We were certainly one of the best, and we would sort of fight until we couldn't fight no more. But that's how it was back then. It was just nobody had much to do because of so much more unemployment in the 80s. Football became a way of life. I in the 80s, I was earning 110 quid a week at Ford. Now, that 110 quid had to divide between living and going and watching football matches. And some weeks, you'd be on the baked beans on toast because you'd spent your entire week going to away matches and stuff like that. You lived and breathed for the club. You know, sacrificed so much of our personal lives for the club. This is why it hurts so much now, seeing how these owners are, because it's just totally disrespecting a lot of other people, not just headhunters, but a lot of other people that were genuine Chelsea that felt just as passionate, but maybe didn't get involved in such things.
Yeah,
They're stamping on the club's DNA. It's just horrible. I don't know. I can't see how the future's going to pan out, to be fair.
I mean, it's like chalk and cheese, literally, in the sense of like how Chelsea was, even up to Roman, to where we are now. And the reason like I wanted to do something like this is the fan base right now doesn't have that resurgence, doesn't have that DNA, doesn't have the minerals. It just don't. It really don't.
I think it's
your day, you know.
Yeah, it's a generational thing. Now, obviously, back in the day, mobile phones and the internet and all that, it weren't about. So if you wanted to entertain yourself or you wanted to be part of something, because also don't forget, let's remember what went on in the 80s. In the 80s, you had like your Tottenham and your Brixton riots and stuff like that. So there was a lot of bad feeling all around. And they tended to cherry pick what ways they wanted to handle these groups, these gangs, these firms in football. And eventually, Maggie Thatcher decided she was going to spearhead a campaign of eradicating it. And then she started going after all of the big firms. And unfortunately, your people like your Mariners and all that, everyone knew him. He was quite an easy target. And then you had absolute wrong-uns like Donald McIntyre infiltrate into the firm by the most despicable means possible, and then basically bait and troll and instill his little virus into that particular side. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't involved in that side. Although I knew Jason, he wasn't my main point of contact within the fan base and with the firm. But we all felt for him. He and many others got fitted up. They got framed. They was entrapped. You name it. I mean, Jason's got his own YouTube channel, as a few of the other boys that were around at the time. And, you know, I've got utmost respect for Jason. He speaks facts, and he's got no reason to say any different.
Yeah, no, respect to him. Like, you know what I mean? He obviously got done and set up, and we all know. Well, we know what the real truth is in terms of McIntyre and how filthy he was.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, we had a good brotherhood. That was the thing. It wasn't all negative. You know, even moving on, like through some of the generations, when it came to the 90s and the Mears family, which owned Chelsea for the best part of 80 years before selling it to Ken Bates. Ken Bates then started a little bit of an uplift in the fortunes of Chelsea. So full respect to Ken Bates for that. And then in the 90s, once we started getting a lot more of the flair foreign players, the Italian influence, you sort of Zolas and Vialis and stuff like that, we had an away game where we was drew against Galatasaray away. On the lead up to the Galatasaray game, there'd been stabbings of Man United and Leeds supporters. And even the year after our Galatasaray game, 2 Leeds supporters were tragically killed from stabbings. Because unfortunately, the nature in Turkey at that time was carrying a knife was nothing. It was just part and parcel of culture. And we went there. You can imagine a week before we knew we was going to Galatasaray, I'm sure there was a few people that were shitting themselves, thinking when we get off that plane, we're going to get the old throat slashing gestures and welcome to hell, if anyone remembers that, with all the flares and banners as you step off the plane. We got all that when we got off, but nobody came at us. Nobody attacked us. So we was with normal fans as well. We weren't just as a group of the firm. There was lots of banter, lots of shouting. But during the game, Chelsea turned it on and gave a 5-star performance and actually beat Galatasaray 5-0.
5-0, yeah.
And Zola made so many runs, back passes, tricks. He was mesmerising on the day. And at one point, the Galatasaray fans, no word of a lie, were cheering on Zola for what he was doing. They could appreciate they were seeing a real Chelsea player at the top of his game, giving it to him. So after the game, we all expected the worst, thinking you've just gone to their home and handed them a 5-0 defeat. You weren't getting back to that plane in one piece. But what we was all expecting didn't happen. And in fact, as we was walking by a lot of the bars, we was getting called into the bars by the Turkish fans. And we was like, okay, what's this, a trap or what? Oh, they're going to take us in there and we ain't coming out. But no, they were buying us drinks. They loved it all. 2 of us missed our flight because we was like drunk as skunks. We woke up in the morning sort of as the shopkeepers were opening up over there. But it was a brilliant night. And that's how I'm saying, with things, you could go there expecting the worst, expecting to have a fight and defend your club. And it actually turned out it was the total opposite. It was a lovely time. But then you try and explain that to a Man United or a Leeds supporter at a time who suffered personal loss through this type of game with this type of club, they just can't comprehend it. They think, well, you were a jammy sod, but I don't see it like that. But there was fun times, you know. It wasn't all doom and gloom. It weren't all about fighting. It's just love for the club. There's so many expos of celebrities you've met over the years. And what a lot of people might want to know is, why was you involved as being a firm? How could you possibly get picked from thousands out there to be a part of it?
Yeah.
You gained a little bit of a reputation of being handy, let's say. A lot of the people, which are still my friends now, are either doormen or they work in security companies, run boxing gyms, you name it. Myself, I trained in jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying I was the best at it, but I knew how to defend myself and I knew how to fight, which meant I could hold my ground, and they knew they could count on me if we was down a dark alleyway. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, we was all cherry picked, if you like, and then would it be one trusted person, as I consider myself was at the time, was then asked to recruit another one. Then that recruitee would then recruit another trusted one, and it would all be like within, especially after what happened to Jason with McIntyre. Everybody closed ranks. The security was like on par with going into MI6, and you think that we're just a bunch of supporters, but you trusted nobody.
But before that, the recruitment was basically, word of mouth, trust. Can I trust this person? Whatever.
Yeah, of course.
What can they? What strengths can they give to our firm? Because at the end of the day, you can't just look it. You gotta land.
You got to show it. Yeah, it's no different to the club under Roman. He wanted elite, so there's no point saying, "Oh, I've seen that geezer have a scrap. He's okay." Well, okay isn't going to cut it. You want someone that's actually going to turn it on and maybe knock two people out, and and run through a pile of fans. He 10 versus 1, and he's the one that just don't give a monkeys. The red mist descends, and he goes at them like a scene out of Clockwork Orange.
Yeah,
he literally will just, and that's what they wanted. They wanted people that knew how to fight, knew how to handle themselves, and had Chelsea at heart. And they had no agenda about bigging up themselves in their own person. That was never what it was about. It was, if the firm, you consider them as your brothers. It was the family, which is the way it should be, which is how basically Chelsea was operating underneath Roman, which is what it hurt so much, thinking he gave the club that family atmosphere.
Before Roman, the club was fully aware of you guys, yeah?
Without a doubt, yeah. A lot of the players knew us as well, but
they
obviously couldn't acknowledge us in public, just in case it got back to their employer, which at the time was Chelsea. I mean, I got in trouble. My fault, totally. I took the punishment. I got a 10-year ban from the bridge. Now, I was being a bad boy, but I must say, in my defence, I felt I was justified, because my hatred of Spurs runs deep, and so deep.
Yeah, come on, speak on it.
And I'm sorry you start waving a cockerel at me. I'm over that fence, and I want to shake hands with your Adam's apple, and that's exactly what it was. I was up and over the fence at the shed, and running down towards the away end, which is now the Matthew Harding. And I probably had 3 stewards trying to rugby tackle me to stop me getting at the Spurs supporters. But at the time, Maggie had given her orders to all the clubs, and I had a personal letter from Mr. Bates saying we would appreciate it if you didn't show up to the bridge for the next 10 years. Well, it hurt, and I had to find another hobby, or I had to stick to away games. So I love cars as well. So that is my mental therapy there, cars. Because they don't answer back. I can give them a kick and they're not going to moan at me. That's me.
Fair play. And I think people don't understand why we hate Spurs. Do you know what I'm saying? Like what people think that we hate Arsenal and even Liverpool to an extent. Like it was always Spurs. It was Millwall, Spurs. And you could go like
West Ham. Back in the 80s, though, Johnny. I mean, West Ham were up there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the Hammers,
even QPR. I mean, my God.
Right. QPR, yeah, facts.
A lot of people forget about QPR because obviously they've disappeared into sort of the doldrums, and they're a spent force, if you like. But yeah, QPR were always on our radar, and we'd always look for anything else. But Millwall and West Ham were probably our top 2 games with opponents always. And Cardiff. I mean, people were surprised, but Cardiff sort of knew how to arrange stuff. And I would say the one time we was away at Cardiff once, we got attacked from a viaduct bridge as we were coming out of the train station. This viaduct was a really big viaduct. For those that have ever been to Cardiff and know the way to Ninian Park, as you come out the train station, you start walking down a bit of a hill, and there's a roundabout underneath the viaduct with like a little shop and a cafe and stuff like that. Just as we was about to go under the bridge, there was probably, there wasn't just the firm then either. That was like normal Chelsea fans, even some Cardiff fans. We was all walking down, and the next thing, we got all of the rocks off the railway lines pepper us.
Fucking hell.
We're talking probably 40 metres up in the air. So you think even the size of a chestnut would be enough to sort of like close your eyes for good. And we started getting these boulders that were the size of, what can I say, baseballs, and then even a few railway sleepers. I mean, we're talking,
really?
They're like, 15 stone or something like that, a railway sleeper. And that was all coming off of this bridge. And I mean, the poor shopkeeper and the cafe that was underneath the bridge was decimated. All of their windows smashed, everything by all the rocks. There was a lot of injuries that day, and but we still made it to the ground, and we still gave her presents, but it was a little bit of a weakened one because it was
that's like a cornering, isn't it? I mean, that's like that was
coward's
dirty,
way,
really.
Coward's way.
That's dirty.
If you rated yourself that much, you would have organised something and go, right, here's the venue, here's the postcode, see you there.
Yeah,
and we go, all right, then let's go along.
Yeah, but they knew they weren't strong enough. That's why.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. It is the way it is. It's like it was an experience, not one I expected, and I don't think anyone expected it. But it certainly made us wary of them going forward in the future years.
I mean, I'm taking quite a few heads got taken out with that. Surely, I mean, if they got
there was a lot of injuries, cuts, bruises, and even like a few serious ones. But we weren't the sort of people, unless it was a life-threatening one, to sort of go crying to the police or the ambulance and go like, sort us out. So we'd all sort of like improvise their own bandages for ripping up T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that. And then after the game, just to sort of fast forward the game, after coming out of the game, we had to then make our way back to the train station. And we all thought, how are we going to get round two? But luckily round two didn't happen. And for anyone that remembers back in the day, you used to have the trains with the doors that opened from the outside. And they were called the milk train. And what they did in those, it was like a cattle train. All of the interior was totally removed from it. So it was like a cargo train.
Right.
And they just put us into these trains like sardines, just trying to get us out of Cardiff.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, mate. And then, you can imagine how long that took getting back to London from Cardiff. And this old rickety thing, every time you lifted your arm, you knocked someone's head. You know what I mean? We was treated like cattle, but there you go.
Okay, big up Nutty Blue says I was there.
Hey, get in there, son.
Get in there, Nutty Blue, bro.
Exactly. Geezer. A lot of people earn their reputation now in that day in Cardiff as well, wouldn't I say? But
it's probably one of the bad. That's a bad one. That's bad.
It was a coward's attack. That's what that was, and they paid for it afterwards. But I won't go into detail on that because that one I've never seen in the press.
Yeah.
What goes around comes around. The old karma.
Yeah, facts. I'm going to quickly run through a few of these, Stevie. Yeah,
go for it, geezer.
Big up to John Snow, Minerals, come on. He says, up to Chelsea, up Minerals FC. Clown Lake out, no surrender. CPO against Clown Lake. Clown Lake will leave our mighty Chels. Big up, Johnny. Big up, Steve G. Keep it up, my G. Big up to you, my geezer, man.
Yeah,
facts. Big up, Stretters. He says, he's an ultra member. Come on, my geezer, bruv. Come on, land it. He says, big up, Johnny and Steve. He says, just want to know, how many scouse dippers have you gutted like a fish in your time, and please don't spare any details.
Mate, all I can say is we should have been working at Billingsgate in some of the tater-tates we had with a few of the bin dippers. They all liked carrying their little Stanley friend as well. They were in their shell tracksuits, greased back hair, Nike trainers, total bunch of wrong wimps.
What was it like at Anfield then? like that, like then, like.
I mean, we appreciated the fact that Anfield had a great ground, great atmosphere, great support. You know, there's no denying Liverpool sort of a fantastic support, etc. But their hardcore element, as they like to call themselves, as it were, cocky, arrogant, everything that Egg Barley is basically. So if you imagine, if you imagine going to Anfield and seeing 2,000 Egg Barleys, that's how we felt. We wanted to have a right chat with him.
I think more than a chat. Let's have it right. More than a chat.
Yeah.
But facts. What would you say, running off what Stretters has put?
Yeah.
What would you say is one of the worst situations?
That's a hard one because there's been some games.
So many.
Yeah, this is it, mate. I mean, as you know, I still go to football now. I don't go to Stamford Bridge as much. And the whole reason I don't go to Stamford Bridge as much in 2024 is I don't like the atmosphere at the bridge.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
So many of the supporters are tourists on an away day. You're almost frowned upon from standing up, having a sing-song and trying to cheer the players on. The fact that we're watching players on the pitch, which are substandard, they're kids, they've got no mentors, they've got no role models, and we're asked to sort of accept this. It's not even that we're being arrogant from what Ken and Roman have done. You put 11 players on that pitch that have pride in wearing that Chelsea shirt and give it their all. I could handle us losing a game 10-0 if everybody tried. I cannot handle the fact that Badia Shields and people like that are just thinking, do you know what, I'm going to break sweat if I run to save that ball going in that goal. Or people like Jackson. Yeah, it shows all of the flair, everything else. He gets to the final third and then he couldn't hit a cow's arse with a shovel. It's just frustrating, and it's just not what we want. I prefer to go to away games now because that's where you keep it real with the real fans, because they're the people putting in the miles, they're putting themselves out. Some of them are doing a whole day or a whole weekend for a game, or keeping it grassroots. I used to go to a Cobham and watch a lot of the kids train and stuff like that. And it was great because you'd see talent coming through and you'd follow them all the way through, like your Conor Gallagher's and people like that. You think, he's doing so well, he's going to make it. Now, I can't get into Cobham. Security is just, I just can't get to do that anymore. And even the same with the women's team over at Kingsmeadow. Under Emma, everything was very relaxed. Emma would come out and talk to you and she would let the players talk to you. Now, obviously, Clown Lake and what they're doing, they're trying to sort of keep everybody away. They're frightened of anything getting out. They've created such a toxic atmosphere around Kingsmeadow, Cobham, even the bridge, that it's just not a nice place to be anymore. This is why I think we do better when we go to an away game on the pitch than we do at home.
Because of the support.
Yeah. It's real support.
But it's the thing, right? When you compare it to back in the day, the support, like, it was united. Like, you had the firm, you 100%. Had supporters. It was a family mindset. It was no surrender mentality. Even before Roman, like, we were winning. Like, we were winning cups, and we were bringing the likes of Hullet and Zolas and all these great players that elevated our club. You know what I'm saying? Like, elevated us. But that's why the firm was like the foundation. I'll go as deep as this, is the foundation of Chelsea in its elevation. Because when you have that backing, and that mentality, and that you instill fear. So it's like, oh, fucking hell. It's not just Chelsea, the team. It's we got to deal with the supporters.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? and you bring that energy and that relentlessness to every game, and the players feel it on the pitch.
Yep.
And your Zolas and your Vialis are thinking, fucking hell, what we just walked into. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like, they're probably used to it in Italy, because I'd like to do, when on another show, talk about like going away in Europe and stuff, and
Yes,
in a bit more detail. But in terms of like the mindset of the supporters, and there is none of that now. Even with the young gen, who might think, oh, we've got a firm, whatever.
yeah.
It's not that. Obviously, different eras. Don't get me wrong, but there's too many dilute supporters around.
100%.
and
There's too many plastic ones.
Plastic ones as well, dilute, whatever you want to call it. They're just. That's why Stamford Bridge is so dead. People go, "Oh, build a stadium." You're just going to get more of that shit. That's the problem.
The thing is, John, like, people will always count the fans as the 12th man. That was true back in the day, because the support was united around Stamford Bridge. So you'd get banter with one stand versus the other to see who was the loudest. So you'd end up with an East stand going, West stand gets a song. And, and then it'd be like that. And then you'd fire it all around and you'd see who's the loudest. And then you realised you had a proper atmosphere. If someone does the old one man went to Mo, or West stand gets a song, you've got to hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
They've just killed the atmosphere, killed the vibe, and they priced out a lot of the real fans. That
Deliberately, we know that. Deliberate. Like, they don't want the old school, because they don't want that mindset, mentality. They want the new gen of trust the process and all this waffle.
100%.
And this is why what's happening at Chelsea now is a godsend for us supporters, because like I always say, we've got the best opportunity now to make ourselves known and our voices known, and actually go against them, because I don't think you're going to get a better opportunity than this. I know Bailey's adamant he's not backing down and all this waffle, but the reality is
someone's got to
back down, and their ego and their pride's going to get dented. And we know what billionaires are like. They don't like that. The problem we got is, I think, just when Roman took over, that's where Chelsea had the foundations of like your Zolas, Vialis, Hullits, all like that team. You know what I'm saying? And winning Cup Winners' Cups and FA Cups and all that. And then you've got the firm, the supporters, the heart and soul. And it was like Roman it would just like lifted everyone even more to believe like we're going for world domination. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we were hated even more. That's the way I look at it, is not only did we have a Russian owner who was self-made and changed the game, revolutionized the game and the transfer market, and turning a club that was winning cups into winning titles and dominating for, well, we know how we dominated, but like that's an era, like, and I get wound up because when you look at Arsenal now, Arsenal have, and it makes me sick to say it, but they have a belief in them, in their fan base. Like, they've got like, everyone's kind of like together. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And it lifts, it allows their process to go on for a little bit more until they just don't win, and hopefully they just don't win. You know what I'm saying? But if they do win, it's a start of something. You know what I'm saying? And we've lost that. We've lost. We had it under TT. I really felt, actually, Steve, under TT, we were rejuvenated. You know, we were connected. We were properly connected, and with Super Frank. But that was during COVID and that. But like,
of course,
you know, you had a lot of ups and downs. And for me, when Jose got sacked, that really hurt me. That really cut me.
I think it hurt everyone, because the thing is, Roman had levels and standards. he always pushed for the highest he could possibly get. Yes, we turned over a lot of managers, but that's because Roman standards were so high. You dipped into the negative side, you may get pulled to one side, and you'd get a word from the big man. And they go, you don't pull your socks up, I'm off. And it doesn't matter who you were, whether you was an Ancelotti, whether you was a Jose, a Conte, or any of them, you would be on your bike because you'd be at Cobham one day, the old helicopter would come over and you think someone's getting a chop.
That's it. You know, it was ruthlessness, but with love.
100%.
You know, because it was love. It was respect. It was, this is not going to work. I need to win. And I need to keep this going.
Yeah.
And that's why, it does hurt with Jose. And then he'd come back. Even Roman was humble enough to bring Jose back.
Yes.
And as ruthless owner as he is, to bring him back. It like united us again. Do you know what I'm saying? But I felt like TT was, we were going to go somewhere with him.
He had the right mentality.
Yeah, he had it. He had the mentality. And I remember like just being away, home and away. It was just like that chant of his. And it just felt like, you know, he was just a gaffer, you know, just a gaffer.
He was a man's man who put his heart and soul on the line, just like he did when we played Spurs and he grabbed hold of Conte by the hand.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Chels.
You ain't getting away with that. He was showing his minerals.
Yeah, proper minerals. And he knows that he was an ex-Chelsea gaffer.
Yeah, exactly.
He knew that. But he also knew he's a Spurs gaffer now. And that's where TT earned stripes, saying, you got to look me in the eyes when you shake my hand, son, and respect me, you know?
Yeah.
And he didn't.
Right.
And like, I love that. But and that's why I get rattled, because these clowns gutted that from us. They took that from us. It's the biggest mistake they'll ever make. And I don't forgive them for it. I'll be real. I don't. Ever since he's been sacked, we've been destroyed.
I mean, as bad as our owners are, the blame all lies with the government at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
I mean, the most annoying thing from me at that time was they was making an example out of all Russians. They was tarring everybody with the same brush. They didn't really look into Abramovich as much as they should have. The fact that he had links with the Ukraine anyway, and the fact that Richard Sunak, his missus, was doing multi-million-pound deals with the Russians whilst all of these things were going on, the sanctions with Abramovich. They took his money very fast.
Yeah.
They've had it sat in their account, as you and Eunice said earlier. That's probably gained God knows how many millions in interest, which is all being used for the British economy. And worst of all now is all of that happened under a Conservative government, and we now have Labour in charge, and they've got no respect for money. So if that money will ever get to Ukraine, or like you hinted at earlier, being used to sort of fund another agenda by an American, let's wait and see.
How do you think, right, if the firm was properly around, like proper, like how it was, how would it react? I want people to understand when would there have been a reaction? Let's have it right.
It would have been either half time or full time. It would have been in the director's car park. They wouldn't have been able to leave the ground. The only way I can put it on par with what people might realise in recent years is how Juventus are, how militant and how their ultras are. The club have to run things past the generals in charge of Juventus fan club. And if they didn't, they paid the consequence. They had the power to veto CEOs getting the sack or forced out from the job and reappointing new people. That's how bad it was. They lived in fear. Bates was frightened of the fans. But we respected him, but he was frightened in case he ever did something which may cause recriminations, etc. But nobody ever took it personal what Bates did to us. We knew he was doing his job and he was doing it for the best of the club. Whether we agreed with all of his methods or not was another story.
So this is my point. But like, these clowns wouldn't have got away with half of the shit they got away with first.
No. They would have been kicking off.
But my question would be, at what point would it have kicked off? Looking over these 2 years, where do you think you see the turning point?
I think, with the way everything happened and the club was in such turmoil, I don't think any of us knew how it was going to pan out to be how it is. But I would have said by about the 10th game in the first season that they were in charge, it would have been, look, we're 10 games in. And then you can start to get a little bit of a feel. Because at the time when they first came in, they were spending money.
Yeah.
They weren't getting the right players, but they were spending money, which shows they weren't afraid. But now we understand why, because that was Bowley. He was coming in and he was thinking, well, okay, this player and that player's available. Let's buy him. Like your Sterlings and things like that, whether we needed them or not. And he was paying big money for them. But a lot of those players have already gone. Koulibaly was another one, wasn't it? He didn't even last the season, really.
No.
So he made mistakes.
So
but then Eghbali's obviously taken over the reins. And since then, we've had nothing but dross and kids.
Yeah. He's
lucked out with a couple. But bearing in mind how many he's bought, that was always going to happen. I'd say out of all of the players we've bought that were kids, let's say, we've maybe had 1.5 success stories. Cole Palmer was like, he broke the chain, as it were. And at the moment, the only person I see in our recent recruits that's showing anything about him, which he's got a long way to go yet, is Viega. But that's only because he's a 40-year-old man in a 20-year-old's brain.
Yeah. No, I see that. I think he's got something about him. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You spent 1.5 billion, and you're naming 1.5 players and player that we don't even know what he's about yet. It tells you everything you need to know. My thing is this, right? If we had that core now, things would be so different.
I think they would have been discouraged from buying the club in the first place, knowing that there would be a fan revolt. And because people like, obviously, Clear Lake, they're all about their reputation. They don't want fans mudding them. They don't want the press coming out with looking into their skeletons in their closets. They would never have gotten away with this. And there would have been a revolt from day one, at which point they probably would have said, yeah, there's money to be made, but is it worth putting their heads above the parapet to be shot at by the Chelsea fans? But in this modern era, in 2024, where majority of our fans are sat at home playing FIFA rather than actually going out on the terraces, or a lot of our fans are worldwide and can't get to the bridge or the away games, they can only rely on people like yourself and Eunice to let them know what's going on behind the scenes, because they're just totally blinkered to whatever NBC, Fox Sports, you name it, are putting out as their narratives. And as we know, all the journos are either in one camp or the other. Hardly any of them are sitting bang in the middle, calling it for either Eghbali or Bowley. They're one or the other, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's just truth. Right. All we want is to be treated with respect and truth, and we'll give it back.
But we're not, and I don't think we ever will under either of them. And like, this is why people need to understand, like, this new gen now is.
Yeah,
I just feel like I know what we need. We all know what we need to do, but it's like it's like, who's going to stick their neck out?
Yeah, none of the fan boards are they? Because the CST, etc., they're in the pocket of the club no matter what. I mean, I'm a member of the CST just so that I can keep abreast of what's going on and what they're doing, because they get so many little perks from the club. They don't want to rock the boat, and the FAB are certainly not fab. They are so far
Oh, they're just bought
Yeah.
outright bought.
Yeah, exactly. They're a joke. They don't speak for us, the fans. They speak for themselves. Because they've got links with the CST as well. It just one waters down the other. They're just both a joke. They're just nowhere near. They don't speak for Chelsea. The real fans all know that they're talking crap.
I think it'll be down to results now.
Unfortunately, I think things need to get a lot worse before fans will actually start putting their money where their mouth is. Because at the moment, there's a lot of people going, let's have a protest and all this and that, which is certainly the right thing to do. But how many will actually show up? And how many will sort of like get the press involved and stuff like that, just to say, look, there really is something happening here. I mean, I'm over in France at the weekend as a guest of the Ultra Boys 90, just to see how they're landing things over there.
Yeah.
And I've been a couple of times before, as a lot of people in the chat will know. But to get invited back for a third time, I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully they've got something for me.
I think they're well ready to start the ball rolling. If I'm being real, like they know their club's not going in the direction that they want it to go into. So
yeah,
I think it's not if, it's a matter of when. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're adamant on Blueco out, and that's it. There is no B plan or we will accept
just
this
get them
or
out.
That. Yeah, it's just like it's pointless even arguing with them. Just get them gone. Don't want them.
Because do you know what? They're going to think from their point of view, right? Well, fuck me. Chelsea have got a war and divide with the ownership and they own us.
Yep.
So what's going to happen to us? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is bigger. This is what I'm saying. Like, it should be a case of Strasbourg Ultras, Chelsea unite to get these clowns out. Blueco, we've got Bowley, Igbali, everyone. Just get them all out, bruv. Get them all out. Like, because the PR that comes with the protest is the most powerful PR.
100%, yeah. It's needed, but unfortunately, a lot of the PR that's coming out is smokescreen. I mean, all of this tonight about the stadium. I mean, this topic has already been done about 18 months ago. For anyone that knows, Stamford Bridge isn't actually in Chelsea, it's in Fulham.
Yeah.
So when things happen, you go to Fulham Town Hall and have a little butcher's. And you saw, even back when Roman drew up plans and it was stifled by his visa and Transport for London wanting him to build tunnels and infrastructure from Fulham Broadway, they were all like taking the piss out of him. So it got shelved, rightly so. But then the suggestion of Earl's Court came up. I don't know where you sit on this. Now, bear in mind, I was a resident and I did grow up in and around Chelsea. Anyone that has never been to Chelsea's ground needs to understand the geography of where it sits. Now, it's just on the edge of the Fulham Road, but that entire area around there is residential. There's not really businesses as such, because the closest you've got is the Earl's Court one-way system, where the shops are, or you're over at the back of Fulham Palace Road, that sort of thing. So the infrastructure there may have worked in 1905, but in 2024, it is hard. Now, the only way Stamford Bridge can ever work as a stadium going forward is if it's totally demolished, the access of it is twisted slightly, and then it can be rebuilt. And then you're going to get a really nice 60,000-seater stadium out of it. But the way that I understand it, and from the plans that I've seen at the town hall, is if Chelsea redevelop the stadium, they want to do it stand by stand. That means the capacity is going to be capped at a lower level and the ground will stay in the same position it is now. And the problem with that is part of where the megastore is can't come back any further because you've got the old wall and then you've got all of the residential houses. There's no room for expansion.
Unless you go down. You have to go down.
The worry is if you go down, you've got obviously the old sewer system
and the railway.
And the railway. And you can't go to the left or the right, as it were, if you're standing at the front of the bridge, because you've got a railway line. You can't go up because Henry VIII put in his bloody silly rule about the height of Stamford Bridge. You cannot go above a certain height because it can't obscure the view from one of the monuments to the other. I think it's St Paul's Cathedral. You have to be able to see from a certain sort of like viewpoint, and that was set out by Henry VIII, and that still not has been changed. How that relevant in 2024, I don't know.
The bottom line is, right, if they want to build a 60+ thousand capacity stadium, they have to move to Earls Court. That's the nearest they're going to go. The problem they've got is a CPO. But why would I not be surprised if these clowns said, look, we'll buy your shares and we'll pay you X amount?
I think that is genuinely on the cards. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been to a CPO meeting?
I haven't been to a meeting.
Right.
No.
I mean, I've been as a guest because some of my family still own shares. And some say it's out of touch, but the fact is they are relevant because they are our safety blanket. Would I rather have a world-class stadium at Earls Court, which maybe holds 80,000 people, which we know will be used for other things at Earls Court?
Oh, so, concerts, fucking
but it's a double-edged sword because at Earls Court you're serviced by 3 train stations, so you've got the infrastructure there to get the fans to and from. And the land, obviously, where Stamford Bridge is at the moment, is prime real estate, probably the most expensive you can get. So if I play devil's advocate, let's say, and they did sell Stamford Bridge, whatever that sells for will be more than enough to pay for the stadium and then some over at Earls Court, because real estate is worth more in Southwark 6 than it is over at Earls Court.
Yeah, facts.
But
I just don't see it, Steve. I don't see.
I don't. It's too late.
It's too late. And the damage is done. There's going to be no trust from the CPO.
Yeah, I could never see it happening. I recently went past Earls Court, and although it's a building site, all of the footings and foundations, etc., are all there in the ground, ready for a development to be constructed. Now,
Rome was going to build. Rome was going to build 60. I think it was a 62 capacity.
That's right.
Something like that. Yeah, where we are now.
Yes.
So why can't you just do that?
Even with Stole Mansions, the Romans' design, I don't think fell within the rules of the sightline from
the
St Paul's, from the Mound over to St Paul's.
But did you know that Roman said, "I'll build a bridge"?
Yeah, I know that there were so many, because if you went along to the town hall when all of this was going on and there was a consultation, you saw all of Chelsea's arguments and fors and against. You then saw all of the residents' objections. And to be fair, there weren't that many, because a lot of them realised that Stamford Bridge is getting a bit long in the tooth and it does need a makeover. But in my opinion, as a former resident and say 50 years of supporting them, the ground does need to be levelled. For me, that's the only way progress can be made if we stay at Stamford Bridge. It has to be knocked down to ground zero and reconstructed as a total new build. Otherwise, it's just going to be like add-ons, how it is at the moment. There's no symmetry with it.
I think, like, look, this talk of stadium is just PR to cover up the absolute shambles that's going on. It's not. They listen. Bowley's PRing that he wants to sort of stadium out, and all of a sudden, Clearlake are running the project. We're talking to Earls Court, and then Matt Law says Earls Court denied it. So I don't want to hear all this nonsense.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is news from a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
that's been recycled and put out.
Yeah.
It's all cobblers.
I'm going to bring up this one. Big up Stratters. He says, we got a Liverpool game cancelled, broke into the stadium, and CR7 Ronaldo sacrificed himself for change. Real Chelsea fans know what needs doing up the Minerals FC. And this is the point.
Yeah, we do.
All it takes is one protest. Just one. Proper. Like, we did it for the Super League. This is for a
Exactly.
fucking
We
club.
turned up and then we had Peter Cech come out trying to be peacemaker for the club.
But this is for our club. This is for our actual club.
I mean, I don't know what the clowns hope to get out of all of this at the end of the day, because common sense must tell them there's something very wrong with the facts we are here now speaking against them. We would rather all be united and rather all have, buying each other a beer down a pub, how it should be. But we're not. We're in fear of what they are doing to our club.
Don't trust it. I don't enjoy it. I feel dejected. I feel detached. I don't have any kind of real affection towards these players, Gaffer, the ownership, the director. There's nothing. It's all divided. It's all fucking. It's so diverse and divided. It's like, and all these people that are promoting that they do feel we're going in the right direction. They're just fucking bought wrongins, and I'm sick and tired of it. And then when you go to games, most supporters are going for the day out to meet their mates, have a drink, watch Chelsea and go, oh, we're shit, and then go home. And I'm thinking to myself, we can't be doing that. Like, we generally can't be doing that. And eventually, a lot of people I know, they don't even want to go no more. They've loaned out their season tickets. They just don't want to go.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. My pal was exactly the same. The only time I will ever go to the bridge now is if my pal can't make it to a particular game and he's got a season ticket. He's in the fire brigade, so if he gets called in, then his job comes first, and he'll give me the ticket. But where I do make the effort is going to away games. If we ever get a class bit of European opposition, I'll be first to book a plane ticket and follow them abroad. But unfortunately, they're sort of just killing the vibe, because where we was all building up our loyalty with the club, being involved in the academy or even the women's team, they're now trying to mug us out of that as well. Sorry times,
I've said it countless times. I'd storm the pitch, but the problem with that is they just ban you. Maybe it's the sacrifice needed to send the message, but it can't be just one person. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be
100%.
Uncontrollable.
There's got to be such a rise in feeling that there's going to be multiple people wanting to organise it, and that's when you then get together. But unfortunately, the way things are at the moment, there is nobody. I couldn't expect you, and I couldn't expect Eunice to put your necks on the line and call for this, because it will never work out. Because what will happen is you'll get some people turn up, but then you'd have other people wanting there, waiting to be negative about it. It needs to come from an official body, and we did hope the CST would be it, especially after that letter that they sent. But I think that letter was just something for PR, if I'm honest, because it seems to have been read, sort of virtually ignored by Jurassic, I think it was, and it was just a load of waffle. These guys haven't got our backs. The only people that have got our backs is ourselves.
Yes, the Chelsea supporters, yeah.
I'd love to be able to say, do you know what? I'll get a group of guys together. You lot can come along too, and everyone does the same thing. And suddenly we land it with like 500 people outside the entrance to the bridge.
Yeah,
we probably could do that, but why should we do 500? At the end of the day, it should be anyone that goes to Stamford Bridge, which, as we know, holds over 40,000 people. If everything was as it should be back in the day, we'd have 40,000 out in the street.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Or when we used to win trophies and we had the open top bus parading all around the streets, there was hundreds of thousands. Where are all these people now?
They don't believe it, Steve.
No, they've lost the faith, mate. So many have lost the faith. And unfortunately, the original headhunters, as we started to stream about, are now of an age where they don't really follow social media and all that, and may not have the physical prowess to want to get involved in stuff like this. So they don't really do your YouTubes and your Twitters and stuff like that, which is a shame because they've got so much valuable knowledge and content. It's gradually being eroded, which is why I wanted to do this with you. If I could possibly give someone some insight into how ingrained Chelsea was in our DNA, which is why we are all the way we are now. We want to see the club do well. We don't want to bitch and moan about it. We want to see trophies. We want to see smiling faces. Yeah. We want to take our missus, the kids, to the games. We want to have a laugh. You know, these days have gone. We've had 2 years of misery, and we've just started the third season, and it looks like the third season's going to be a very bumpy ride. Fluffed it with Osman, isn't it?
Yeah, Osman, everything's fluff, man. Like everyone knows what I think. Everyone knows how I feel.
Yeah, mate. You're a don at it at the end of the day. We all respect you for what you are.
And I won't stop. You know what I mean?
Bloody right. Yeah.
But it will get to that point. And it will. I can feel it. I think it will.
It has to.
There's a lot of match goers that I see, and I've seen on the timeline that people might not know them, but they're thinking like we're thinking. You know, they're home and away. You know what I'm saying? So, like I say, that away supporters, they're the ones that made Bowley, you're a see you next Tuesday, Roman Abramovich chants,
yep.
and made the media pick up on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
now you got this upstairs, which is going to make them even more on edge. And us, we're on edge. We're all on edge. We're all thinking that like this ain't right, and this is going to go on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, before, if you had a bad appointment or a wrong manager or something like that, you could just focus your attention on that one area and go, right, okay, we don't like the manager. Well, maybe he'll get a few results. Might get lucky with him. You never know. But now, with the rot starting at the top and filtering all the way down, you're looking at the entire club as being rotten. I mean, quite frankly, they've proved that they can sell the club by their actions and what they're saying in the last couple of days. So why don't they just get hold of a nice Saudi investor who's going to give them a good bit of profit on their purchase price, and they all take it and piss off, and they let the club fall back into somebody's hands who wants what's best for the club.
And this, I agree, and this is facts. Like United set up a 1958 group to rival the United Supporters Trust, and that's how they started their protest. Chelsea Supporters Trust are too soft, and they're too worried about breaking and burning every possible bridge with Chelsea and having that communication. But sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, and you have to sacrifice that for the good of the club. And actually, you might rebuild a bridge that is stronger, more durable, more sustainable, and has longevity with the new regime or setup that has been created from that catalyst of pulling away from that fear of losing that connection and that link, but doing it for the right reasons, because we all generally love the club, and we're all the Chelsea Supporters Trust love the club. Let's have it right. I mean, they're supporters. They go home and away. They're generations of supporting the club. So you need to learn the minerals. Like, it is what it is. Like,
they are very limp-wristed at the moment.
They're very cautious, and they have made a move. I respect that. You've made a move. You've put a letter out. You've communicated.
Yeah, it was something. Right?
And we got the response that I expected, and they probably expected, where there was no response, and it was a fugazi. But this is my thing. Now it's next levels. Now look where we are since that letter. Have we progressed? Have we improved? Do you trust it more? Do you think you've been answered? Have you? Fuck. We've declined, and we're in a worse situation than we were then when the letter was put out. So the only way I see it now is that no surrender mentality. It needs to be spearheaded by the Chelsea Sports Trust to say, do you know what? Enough's enough. You've rejected us. The Fan Advisory Board, we do not recognise you. And if the chairman's on that member of that board, he can say, fuck it, I don't care. I'm with the Chelsea Sports Trust. And you create that bond, and you show that shield for the Chelsea supporters. You know, that you're there to protect us and speak for us. And in that way, you set up a date. I guarantee you, bruv, we'll all be there. The moment the Chelsea Supporters Trust do that, and it's official like that, we will all be there.
Yeah, this is it. Unfortunately, they're too frightened of rocking the boat. That's all it is at the moment, because they get certain perks. The same as a lot of people say, why don't some of the more important former Chelsea players speak up? They can't. As much as they want to, they can't. And then you've got, now he's a Premier League flip-flopper, and that's Mikel doing what he did. He basically sold his soul for that brown envelope. Massive.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't care about legends no more. Like, I respect them. I love them for what they've done, the memories, and watching them play, in the flesh, whatever. But this is bigger than them, and the NDAs have killed this football club, because this is the filthy manoeuvres that these clowns like to play with.
Yeah,
I've got something in my mind that I'm gonna do, because I've had enough now.
Well, I mean, the only way I can see a possible solution is, like as you were saying, with what Man United set up. There might be a time now to sort of get something up and running that's totally independent and has zero connections with the football club. Let it gain a bit of momentum, let it gain a little bit of size, and then reach out to make contact to say, right, this is who we are, this is our numbers, and we request you do something about it, or at least respond, or face the consequences of protests. I'd love to see that happen, because that's really what needs to happen.
He needs it. Well, our club desperately needs it right now. Desperately needs it.
We need someone who's just going to stand up and actually clench a fist and go, right, this fist isn't coming down until we get a response or we get some action.
Yeah.
Because the CST are so weak-willed. They might have a good heart at the root of their thing, because as you said, we know that they've got Chelsea at their hearts, but they can't just be more yes men. I mean, Christ, how many yes men have Clear Lake got? It's just too much.
Well, they've got everyone, because, like I say, everyone wants to have a connection, a link, a know-how, and try and build a relationship, because they don't want to tarnish relationships. But the reality is, these owners have destroyed and broken every fucking bridge possible to have a relationship with the supporters, who they call customers, or they think of as customers, even if Jurassic's been he's gone back to his Clear Lake wrong and job.
Yeah, exactly. He's only been pushed sideways, hasn't he?
But the reality is, that customer stigma will always be there, because we know if that's a Clear Lake member of staff, and CEO or whatever, then that's how Clear Lake are. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they made Jurassic the fall guy. That's all it was, because he brought in so many crap policies and ripping the fans off. They've gone, okay, well, we'll move him so he's out of the limelight, but of course we can't go back and start changing things again. So we've got to accept all of the price hikes and the customer label and all of the crap that came with him. And now we've got the pie eater Gannon. I mean,
this is facts, actually. Chelsea Empire's put Clown Lake, Lewis Benson, Hedges, Football Therapy, Nini, Fabrizio, Benson, Ben Jacobs, Goldfish, are all holding this protest from happening. They're stopping it. Yeah. But do you know what the funny thing is? They all have to speak about it. They all have to speak about the ownership now because they didn't want to fucking do it before. But they've got no choice to do it. And now they have to actually highlight why they're such clowns and why they've destroyed our football club, because they were paving over everything that was facts, everything that was clear as crystal clear for everyone to see. All right.
Yeah.
And this is the problem when we talk about the firm and the mentality and the supporters then, and you look at this shit now, and you look at the amount of influence that these little wrong'uns have, right? This is what rattles me.
It's the power of social media, I'm afraid, in 2024. You got to think, back then, you didn't have social media. Our social media back then was some mush selling a newspaper outside the ground. Or you got a phone call, or you got a letter. So now, with everyone on their smartphones and stuff like that, social media has now become a weapon, and Clear Lake are good at using it, I'm sorry to say, by paying off all of these Romanos and your Vinci boys and all of that, which are all just banging that drum of crap.
Facts. We're going to stop it. Big up to Adam Rated. He says Juventus wants Vlahovic to lower his wages. It's a good time to go all in and get him, since Osimhen probably hates Clown Lake now. Big up Steve G. Keep the blue flag flying high. Forget it, bruv. Like, you can't be signing players when you've got a battle of ownership going on in January. It ain't going to happen. Like, no one's going to sign anything off. So, forget player signing. People forgot that. Forget player signings. It's not happening.
We had a chance of Vlahovic before anyway, because they wanted to do a deal with Lukaku, and it never happened.
He's too old. Brian says egg barley in the bin. Clown Lake rats, snakes, facts. John Snowminnell says, what was it like to watch Drogba play live, Stevie G?
Well, all I can say is, if you look at the screen, you can see next to me on the right-hand side, I've got Drogba there. Every one of those players on that backdrop are all players that I've seen, admired, loved, followed, as well as our Don Roman there and Jose. Drogba was immense, because when you watch him at pitch level and he's in full flow, it was like someone doing bowling, and he was the bowling ball. He would knock people out of the way. He would show strength. They would pull at him. And if you saw him at the end of normally half time or full time, his shirt was all out of shape. He'd have rips in it. People literally targeted him. The guy was a dream to watch. And what's more, he would have one thing in mind as soon as he got the ball, and that was putting it in the net. And normally he did, and mainly against Arsenal.
He did it against the Goons, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He landed it on the Gooners big time.
Even Spursy in the FA Cup final and shit. Come on.
The guy was immense. But there again, there were so many players.
Yeah.
I mean, Vialli, for me, he's always been the special player in my heart. I lived near him, and I got to meet his family many times over the years, and it really hurt when he passed away. He was a true legend on and off the pitch. Weirdly, I never met him at the ground. I only ever met him coming out of his house, getting in his car, or when he was off out with the family. But he always took time to talk to me. So, total love for Vialli, always.
Yeah, legend. For me, one of my favourite Didier goals was the one at Goodison.
Oh, yes.
That goal was just ridiculous, mate.
It was
special goal. That was a special goal.
But every decade had their great player.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, if people watch Zola in the day prior to Hazard, you wouldn't believe what he was doing with the ball.
Someone asked top 5 players for Chelsea, Steve.
And
rank them. Rank them like top.
My number one player for Chelsea. Wow. Yeah. I suppose I've got to do it in reverse order, mate. It's the only way I can see of doing it.
Yeah.
Best players for Chelsea. for me, for my own personal experience, not because he banged in goals, but because he lived and breathed Chelsea, was JT.
Yeah.
That guy would run through a brick wall. He would face suspensions, illnesses, injuries, and he would bleed blue for the club. And he was brilliant. One player that actually I do rate very highly, which isn't up there, is Dennis Wise.
Yeah, Wisey, yeah.
Wise was like a Yorkshire Terrier, and he was a brilliant captain for Chelsea. Ruud Gullit, when he came, he brought all of the flair. He was at the end of his career, so we had probably a season and a half good out of him before his knees caught up with him. But Gullit brought something different. He brought the smile back to Chelsea fans' faces. And as for Peter Osgood, he was a brilliant striker. Hence why we've got the statue of him at the bridge. People don't realise about him. Back in the day with those big old heavy footballs, and he was playing with the likes of Ron Chopper Harris and Tommy Langley and big old Mickey Droy. And I don't mean the one in the chat.
Yeah, Mickey Droy in the chat.
Yeah, big Mickey Droy. For people that don't know, Mickey Droy was a big lump of a man. Full big bib. He looked like David Bellamy, for those of you that don't know, but he was like 6'5" and he was built like well, you know what he was built like. But he was an absolute legend. And Vialli would say, will always be there. He's probably meant, I've got Vialli tattoo on my arm.
Yeah, come on.
And for me, Vialli is no surrender.
That mentality in it.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know what it was. Italians and Chelsea really gelled.
Yeah, it's just we got a championship Italian right now.
Well, the one we've got now, as you say, he's Pep cigar holder.
Yeah, he is. Big up to John Snow Minerals. He says hire a banner plane. It is between 995 quid to 2,200 quid plus VAT with Bowley and Clown Lake out banner. We can contribute for it up the Chelsea Supplements FC. I don't think you can fly a plane.
Yeah, I've heard that you can't. I mean, to be fair, I'm not saying not that I'm condoning it, but with the fact that you can go and buy a drone nowadays, I'm sure some people could rig something up and drop something.
You know what you can do? I'll tell you what you can do. You get some sheets, right? You write that on those sheets. You go to the bridge and you pin it, leave it there, and just let people take pictures.
On the old Bovril gates.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that will work a charm.
But I mean, back in the day, like when the people were doing the old Fathers Against Justice and stuff like that, they were like climbing buildings. Be nice to have someone sat up on the top of the East Stand with a little banner hanging down on match day. Have that.
Yeah. I think that's the only way, to do it. But Stretters has got a great point here. If Spurs win at the bridge, then it's got to be a protest. I just don't think we would ever lose to Spurs at the bridge. I don't think we'll lose to Spurs at all this season, to be honest with you. I think I've always seen us like, even if we're shit and we're not on it that day, we'll just beat them. The supporters won't allow it, bruv. Not in the ground.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, for me, hate is a really strong word. So when you say you hate somebody, you've really got to hate them. Otherwise, don't use that word. But Spurs, we hate. There's nothing I wouldn't do, even now at my age, to mud Spurs. If I was given the invitation to go and do something to rattle a Spurs fan now, I'd be going, right, Johnny, see you later, mate. I'm off. I've got to go and do a bit of business. And I would. I hate them terribly. And it hurt me when we got rid of Gus Poyet, because Gus Poyet was a really fun character. And he went off to Spurs, and I prayed he didn't land it. Luckily, he was just coming to the end of his prime. So I'm glad they got him for that bit.
Facts. Adam Rate says, Chelsea made me love the game. It makes my blood boil that Clown Lake ripped apart our beloved Chelsea. Clown Lake out. They actually have. They've, like, not from us in terms of like, but what they've done to us and to humiliate us and embarrass us, yeah, this would never happen back in the day, bruv. Never. No chance. These lot wouldn't even last fucking half that season of the first season, bruv. Even what they've done to Mason Mount, everyone would have gone mental, bruv.
Yeah, it's just like back in the day when it was even the Mears family before Ken Bates and all that. He would never have made it out of Stamford Bridge car park. There would have been a blockade stopping his car from leaving the ground. It was like that. Now everyone's too frightened.
And I heard Marin speak about Mason Mount. He was fucking spot on, bruv, because he sees it. You see it from a match going supporter.
Yeah.
Sees what he's about, like knows the player, bruv. No, or a football man. I'd say a football man.
Yeah, someone that understands the game. Yeah,
yeah, would understand the levels, and we ain't replaced him, bruv. We just haven't.
No, we're getting rid of anyone that shows any sort of loyalty or desire to the club. The facts, whether you liked Conor Gallagher or not, he lived and breathed our club. Now, whether he was what we would class as an elite player, maybe not, but he deserved to be in our squad. But in our current squad under Clearlake, his place was guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then what they've done with people like Trev Chalobah, as I say, Mount.
Disgusting.
Even with your other Cobham graduates, your Tammy Abrams, there's people like that, and Hudson Adoys, they've all gone off to other clubs and they're all doing brilliantly. It's just sorry, what they've done. They've taken anything that was elite with 2 stars out of our club and replaced us with Kindergarten
FC. Adam K says, does Steve remember Paul Elliott? How good was he? I remember Paul Elliott.
Yeah, Paul Elliott is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was many players around like in that day which all had the right mental attitude. And he was definitely one of them. He got stuck in. There was never any issues with Paul. Fans took to him as well.
Yeah. Why don't you speak on Canoville?
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of people may not realise who Paul Canoville was. When he first came into Chelsea, there was a lot of racism in Chelsea because it was like the old era, as it were. And it took a lot of us, and I was definitely one of them, who was trying to say, look, you can't be acting like that. This guy's putting on a shirt. He is our player. He deserves respect. He doesn't need to be all this. And when Paul Canoville started playing for Chelsea, I was in the shed towards the West Stand where I was at the time. And as Canoville come to take a corner, if I remember rightly, loads of people were heckling him. They were shouting abuse at him. And then there was like a hail of bananas and stuff like that chucked down on the pitch. He was our player. And I was literally gobsmacked when I saw that. And it really did offend me massively. Now, I was standing with a friend of mine at the time, whose name was Wesley. He comes from Ladbroke Grove. Real big, staunch Chelsea fan. And he just bowed his head. He was embarrassed to see what he said. Today, if that happened, my mate would probably be running over there wanting to start a punch-up. But he knew that there was such a contingent of racists at the time in the shed. And now that's all sorts. There could have been some from the firm. There could have been some just match-going supporters. There could be some bigots. There could be just some purely ignorant people. But Paul Canoville never reacted. He was as calm as you liked. He got on with the game. You could see that the lad was hurting inside. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yes, fucked.
He carried on. And he played for us for, I think it was 5 or 6 seasons. By the time, let's say, he'd finished his playing career at Chelsea, the racism side of things, especially in the shed, was virtually non-existent. That's how long it took to change things and educate people. There's no need for it. I'm not saying everyone needs to change their whole perception of life, but it was wrong. And That was the only time it ever hurt me to be a Chelsea supporter, to see how they treated Paul Canoville. And obviously he's got his own foundation now. He works against racism, and he deserves the utmost respect. But a lot of people don't realise just what he did and how influential it was. And funny enough, there's a TV show which some of you may or may not know, which is called The Chelsea Detective. It's not really mainstream as such. It's now on like Drama or something like that. It's being shown. Episode 3 of The Chelsea Detective all centres around racism and no surrender and stuff like that, and how the term no surrender was perceived as a racist term. Almost like how the George Cross, instead of being the national flag of England, is now perceived as being a racial flag. It took a lot of hard work to say that no surrender is not that. No surrender is the mentality of wanting to see the best done for our football club. It's got no racial connotations whatsoever. And the people that are using it as a racial connotations are those with an agenda.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
So it's just a little bit of insight for everyone watching where the term no surrender comes from. It is a real gutsy Chelsea term from the 70s, but it does not imply racial connotations. It is all about being Chelsea through and through.
And that's the media portraying that kind of
that
kind of
anything they can to make it look bad.
Yeah. To just to glorify the Chelsea supporters and firmers like, bigots and fucking racists. And
because obviously if you portray someone as a bigot or a racist, it's very easy to gang up against them.
Yeah. Well, they just cling on to it, don't they?
Yeah, it's terrible. But I mean,
and now we've got Enzo, by the way.
Please. I mean, I've had this discussion with my lad so many times. Whenever Enzo's come on the pitch, he does nothing for the club anyway, but that's neither here nor there. The fact that he took to his own phone and filmed himself having a jolly up with the majority of his national team, chanting a racist song, pleading ignorance. Oh yeah, I didn't realise what I was doing. He was the one filming it. He knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah. It's in his DNA. He is a racist. How did the club punish him? Oh, we'll make you captain. Oh, my God. How could you? It's the biggest slap in the face ever, and it's probably taken racism back at Chelsea 10 years.
Yeah. The image now. We've got an identity crisis as it is, all right?
Yeah.
And then they've slapped this on us.
I mean, the only way Enzo could do anything wrong now is if he suddenly comes onto the pitch wearing a white pillowcase.
Yeah.
It's as bad as that. I don't want him at our club, but obviously I ain't the one that pays his wages and I ain't the one that bought him. But I dislike him with a passion, and I think he can never change. It's in his DNA, the way he's grown up, the people he's around. He's a racist through and through.
Yeah, facts. Minerals FC says, did you go to the UCL final 2012 Munich?
I did, but I went with family to that game, so I was on best behaviour.
Best behaviour.
There was no leaping over the fences and having a go at people. But I did go to that one, and needless to say, I had a great time, as did the family.
Facts. Johnny and Steve, top 5 hate tier of clubs.
Oh my God.
Well, Spurs is number 1 in it, really. Or would you? Well, you got to put Spurs number 1, surely. Would you put? Or you put someone above them, Steve?
No, brother. No. Spurs have earned the right to be number 1 at something. Yeah. They can have my trophy of being the most hated club by us.
Yeah.
There's nothing we would not do to rubbish Spurs, and that's the way it is. This is why when we got Pochettino, we hated him with a passion. We did not want a Spursy. Even if he was a good manager, we didn't want him. He was Spursy.
Yeah.
It was fair enough when we got Glenn Hoddle. Because Glenn Hoddle was a legend at Spurs. But at least when we got him, he was a manager and not a player.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, top 5. Well, in the day, it would have been Millwall, probably second.
Yeah. Definitely.
I'd go for West Ham third. Probably Cardiff fourth.
QPR.
QPR didn't really have a firm, because the unfortunate thing is, if people don't realise, QPR was only 2 miles away from the bridge. It was just basically Shepherd's Bush at the back of the White City Council estate. And a lot of us, when we used to go match day, we used to go shopping at Shepherd's Bush, then walk up through Holland Park or Notting Hill Gate, through into Kensington and back into Chelsea that way. So geography was quite tight.
Leeds has got to be there, I think.
Leeds, for the generation before me, would definitely be in the top 5. But for me personally, I think I'll go for Liverpool at 5. Yeah, there's never been in anyone.
What era are you talking, though? You're talking like when we were with Roman and that, or what? Like Liverpool-wise, or you going back even further?
Because remember, at that time, Liverpool and Barcelona were getting the rubber of the green over everything that went on with Chelsea.
I mean, I'll be real. I couldn't stand Barcelona. I couldn't stand them, bruv.
They were scum.
Scum. Like, I'd actually have them in there, and especially for that 2009. Like,
yeah. I mean,
that was a killer, bruv. Do you know that scarred me? That did. It still does. I can't watch it.
Who can forget Drogba, the way he was exploding? I mean, he nearly ended up with a free stretch, the way he was carrying on the sidelines.
He should have had, what, 2 penalties from Didier alone?
Yeah, but you see what I was saying about, like, if you remember that game as obviously as vivid as I do, the state of his shirt at the end of that game, it was all out of shape. Everything, it was ripped. Yeah. And he didn't get a penalty for anything, because obviously we only found it.
If I remember, Anelka.
He got dropped. Yeah, he got dropped in the box.
Yeah, he got dropped. Drogba as well. Ballack with the handball. It was a handball, wasn't there?
That's right, it was, yes.
Yeah.
And his hand was like up in the totally raised position.
It was clear, yeah.
It was like a Maradona moment.
Yeah. And there was one more. I'm trying to think who it was.
Yeah, but that game was sort of living in for me for what he did. It was just.
It was Malouda, yeah. Malouda was pulled down.
Florent Malouda, yeah. That's right.
Florent Malouda, yeah. Facts. Yeah, but the Arsenal didn't have a firm. Like, Arsenal weren't really, like, we do hate them, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about top 5 here.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, it's a very long list. The top 5.
A long list. Yeah.
There is a long list. That's the thing. It's very hard to actually pinpoint people into 5, because in one decade, it may have been Spurs at the top, and then it may have moved on to Liverpool or whatever. For me personally, it's been Spurs for the last 50 years. I hate them.
It will always be Spurs. It will always be Spurs.
I just can't stand anything about them. It's just, makes me shudder just hearing their name.
Yeah, I can't wait if we batter him this season, man. Big up Brian. He says, catch up with Stream later, Minerals Generals up the Chels. Come on, bruv. Come on, my geezer. What do you want to, like, give us something? Let's say something from the firm that you can leave us with for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is just to whet people's appetite and get the ball rolling. I mean, I'll concentrate more on a bit more of what's gone down and things they might have read in the press and stuff like that, and what different people's perceptions were of it, and maybe correct a few untruths. I mean, you'd be surprised. A lot of the headhunters, etc., all had good jobs. They were quite respectable. It was like they'd done a suit. So it weren't just a case everyone standing there with some stonewashed jeans and Dr. Martens and a Harrington on and a knuckle duster in their pocket. You know, if you've got them visions, that wasn't it. It was more a case in the 80s, people were wearing the old Sergio Tacchini T-shirts. Yeah. you know, your Fila shell suit, your Nike trainers, your Lois jeans, your Pringle jumper. You know, everyone was looking smart. And if you wanted to stand out from the crowd, you went and put on the old Sherlock Holmes deerstalker hat and looked like a bit of a plank. But but that's how it was. All I can say is a poignant moment, right? Well, it was one particular time. Jason will probably corroborate this if he hasn't already done it on one of his streams. We was all cornered leaving a West Ham game, and we was sort of like shoved down this alleyway, if you like, at the back of some shops, not far away from Upton Park, and we was outnumbered probably 3-1 at the time.
Wow.
And they were coming at us with like chair legs, bricks, and all sorts, rather than just the usual punch up. They really wanted to hurt us that day, and a lot of us took a battering. I ended up with a dislocated elbow, and I think I broke a toe and stuff like that, you know. But your adrenaline was flowing; you didn't feel it at the time. And then it was like the cavalry coming in from like one of the movies. Like one of the other branches of the firm had heard what was going on and said, like, have you seen what's going on down there? And they came in and saved the day. And all I can say is when we left that alleyway, there was probably 50 of the ICF's finest all kissing the tarmac.
Yeah, sleeping on tarmac.
Yeah, exactly that. But it would happen. You'd like to plan stuff, but it never always worked out because
sometimes you're getting ambushed. You know what I mean? That's the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got to be on your toes.
I mean, I got hurt bad then as well as like many other people. We're not invincible, but a lot of us did know how to handle ourselves and knew how to recuperate and sort ourselves out, get yourself ready for the next game. You know, so. Again, the no surrender attitude. Just because you go out a battering one day doesn't mean you've given up on the club. It just means as soon as you're back to full strength, you're at it again.
You're at it again. Facts. And last one here from JP the dog. Come on, Ultra Bruv. He says the journo that infiltrated the hunters. That was all exaggerated? ?
That would be Donald McIntyre.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's exaggerated.
Of course, it's exaggerated because at the end of the day, they want to paint everybody in a negative way that they were doing the country a service. That's why McIntyre was sort of steered towards doing what he did. But he went above and beyond. It was almost like a personal mission for him. The fact that he shacked up with one of the birds, he got her up the duff. That was involved in the Chelsea scene and all that. So whilst undercover, if you like, he was leading a double life. He was shadowing.
That wasn't exaggerated.
He was shadowing Jason everywhere. He was following him. He was making sure he'd always be seen wherever Jason was. But if it was down the local Mackie D's or in the Boozer, like the Fulham Bray and people like that. We, you know, if anyone's watched the documentary, you can see what he said in that. The fact he even got a Chelsea tattoo and
yeah, but and actually, interestingly enough, it was the type of Chelsea tattoo that he got.
Yes, that crest.
Yeah, that crest. He didn't get the crest from before.
No, exactly. This is the thing. I mean, hindsight's a great thing. Why you would get that crest, I don't know, because the crest I've got,
right? That was a current one.
It was current, but it was only a temporary crest, wasn't it? It was only brought in for a short time. Now, the crest I've got on my back, which is my whole back, which is about 2 foot high, is the Chelsea Lion.
It's the one in the centre on the screen.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Not the modern spin-off, as it were, the one that's slightly to the right.
Yeah.
But again, with hindsight, you think that's a bit odd because it's like he started his Chelsea journey at that crest, by which point a lot of us had probably 20 years already in. But it is what it is. You know, he made himself credible. Jason said himself he was suckered into some of his antics. There was quite a few other things that did go on regarding McIntyre, but I don't want to be done for liable because obviously I'm just a a humble supporter nowadays.
Yeah,
But yeah, there was a few things that he did which were disturbing and disgusting, which I hope one day is brought out into the public domain, but it's not my place to do it, I'm afraid.
yeah, of course, of course. But I think that's a great insight for the start, and I think big up to everyone. And they did depict Chelsea, and they just wanted to eliminate the football
Yes.
tribalism, if you like. That was basically because the simple fact is they couldn't control it. Let's be real.
It was out of control, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. I mean, because Chelsea was involved, but you got to think this was only from our club point of view. A lot of the firms did have a mutual respect for each other, and when it came to England games abroad, they did link up. So you would have interaction between, if you want to label them as generals, but of one firm with another one to gang up on certain other internationals, as it were. So you did see this. So the hooliganism, once it spread into Europe, it became an issue. And if you remember, there was a point where English teams were banned from Europe purely or because of the hooligan aspect. And that's when Thatcher literally started up a special team to target firms to take them down and get it gone. And then she started implementing fines and issues with clubs and owners, saying if you don't punish them with your full weight and get them out of your club, we'll put sanctions against your club. And this is what Ken Bates was facing at the time. And that's when I got issued my 10-year stretch, as it were, just keeping away from the bridge, not in prison, I might add. Yeah, so I had to find another hobby or stick to away games, which is what I did.
Facts. Away games, that's a cheeky one, isn't it?
I mean, I'll say one thing for Jason. Some people may know this, they may not. But Jason obviously was banned the same as I was, and if not worse. He actually started going to a few matches in disguise.
Did he?
Yeah, he'd done a few in disguise. And then, if God rest his soul, Dave Courtney actually went to an England game, and Jason was being pushed around in a wheelchair.
No way.
Yeah, exactly. This is the lengths he would go to watch a game.
What a legend, bro. That's
know what I mean. And that's the old Wembley as well.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly wheelchair friendly.
Yeah. No, definitely not. It ain't, is it?
No, exactly. It's all sawdust and spit. That's all bloody old Wembley was. This is the levels, and this is why I said a lot of people that were involved in the firms, they had careers as doorman, security. They was involved in MMA, martial arts, boxing. So everyone they knew could handle themselves. So, this is how it is. Although I did martial arts, I never had a job in martial arts. I mean, I worked for the Ford Motor Company. So I mucked about with cars. I took my vengeance out kicking a piston or kicking a wheel. Whereas other people might do it in a ring. But, no, it's all good.
Love that. Big up, Steve. Big up to everyone in the chat.
Thanks everyone from the chat. Yeah.
And Chelsea Empire says, I wonder what Jason Marin thinks of Chelsea. I think he thinks he's dross and dead, mate, like all of us. So
he's not really interested, to be fair. I mean, Jason has moved on to other things. He lives now over in Thailand now. So I'm not saying he lives the life of Riley, but he's not under pressure how he used to be, because the Jason I met lived in Feltham, and he used to fit tyres on motors before, making fame, as it were, within the Chelsea community. But a lovely guy, met him hundreds of times, have a respect for him. But there again, I'm only one of many that knew Jason. He knew everybody. He was one of those people, he'd rattle off names like nobody's business. He knew everyone.
Yeah. Legend. Big up to everyone. Big up, Steve. guys, smash the like button, like support.
Get him likes up. Come on.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? You ain't getting this nowhere else, bruv. What are we doing here? And at the end of the stream, put all your comments down below. Big up to you, Steve, for sharing all of this and being here with us for a couple of hours. And
no worries.
And I look forward to our next one when we'll get it booked in, and everyone, I'm sure, will be here who listen to the next ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What I suggest is anyone that wants to know anything or got any questions, if I can answer them, I will. Leave it down in the comments below the stream, because I will read all of the comments, I promise. And if there's a question to be answered, I will give you the answer in the next stream I do with Johnny.
Class. Like let's do that. So guys, big up to everyone. Appreciate you being in here and supporting the channel. Check out the stream with Eunice earlier, and I'll be back tomorrow at Land Minerals. Don't you worry about it. So love to everyone. Keep winning in life as always. We're going to leave you with our Don Roman and up the Chels, up Mills FC. Big up Don Roman, Clown Lake out, Bowley out for that matter. No surrender mentality.
Everyone out.
Everyone out except the proper Chels. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
No surrender.
No surrender. Let's go.
Roman of Brownfish, Roman of Brownfish, Roman of Brownfish.